Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Kernels. My name is Sam Bouwers. I'm the consultant for continuing education at the State Library of Iowa, and I have Erin Coughlin with me today from the Nevada Public Library in Nevada, Iowa. First, just a little bit about Kernels. It's an ongoing series of short videos, just a little quick pop of professional development that gets us right to the core of a library program or service or something that they're up to. And we usually have an in-practice librarian like Erin talking about what they're up to so we can all learn from each other. Now we post these to our YouTube channel and to Iowa Learns, so you can watch them for information or for credit. And if we have any attachments or links or handouts or anything, that'll all be included in both of those places as well. So Erin is here today because I learned that her library was an early adopter of a new tool from WhoFi for managing meeting room spaces. And so when I found out that they'd been working with WhoFi on developing this new tool, we all know and love WhoFi here in Iowa, and I thought this would be a great way to feature this new tool. And so Erin, before we get into what exactly it is that the WhoFi meeting room tool can do for us, can you tell us a little bit about Nevada and about your library?
Sure. We are an E-sized library in the county seat of Story County. And so we have a city population of about 7,000. And our current building was built in 1990 with an addition added on in 2014. And we're right kind of in the heart of downtown. And so we utilize our space as a kind of a community hub a lot of times. And so we have one large meeting room in the front of our building that we allow nonprofits to use for free, or individuals can actually rent it out for things like birthday parties or their own personal like card game get-togethers and stuff like that. And we rent that out during open hours and during closed hours, actually. And then we also have 4 small study rooms that are utilized by students and adults who either need quiet places to study or personal space to film a TikTok or something like that. So we've got 5 different rooms total that the community uses for various meetings.
And in a town of that size and with that makeup of rooms, I expect they're pretty busy.
They are. Our meeting room is by far the busiest, which is part of why we adopted kind of a digital framework for reserving it. And our study rooms are really quiet during the day. But once those after school hours hit, it seems like we have all kinds of people who are using those.
I bet for sure. So you mentioned that the meeting room in particular being really busy. Prior to having a digital tool, what did managing the reservations for that room look like for you guys?
So I came in 2021 in September and was shocked to find out they were still using a binder and paper to keep track of who was using the room and when. And I just thought there's got to be an easier way and a way to make sure that there's not any double bookings, because that would have been my nightmare. And so we looked into some digital programs at that time. There was too much opportunity, I guess, for user error with the old school binder. And it was literally just notebook paper in there. And they'd put the dates on top of each page and 30 pages every month and just write it down. And this also created some issues with if we weren't planning our programs ahead enough, then we were getting left out of being able to use our own space. And so we kind of shifted our policy a little bit, but ultimately, I think what's worked the best is our digital tool that works with our programming calendar as well.
So then, because if you were starting fresh every month, if you didn't remember to put your story times in, what have you, and that was going to be a question I have was, does that big room get used for library programming and all these community events you just described?
It gets used for a lot of our adult programs, but it does get used for some of our teen and or kids programs as well. So it was very important to me that we develop not only a digital system, but a procedure within our staff to make sure that our needs are met, and then the community's extra meetings and stuff, because it's really the only space in our library besides the story time room that could be used for programs.
Yeah, absolutely. So did you start with WhoFi right away then in 2021? It hasn't been out that long, right?
No, we started, WhoFi did not have this opportunity then. So we started with LibCal in 2021, which was fine. It was much more robust than anything we needed as a small Iowa town library. And so we paid a lot for it. It worked for us, but we certainly didn't get our money's worth out of it because we just essentially needed a pretty simple system. And so when I heard WhoFi was getting into the program calendar and the meeting room space reservations, I kind of probably annoyed Ashley at WhoFi because I kept reaching out to her and saying, hey, I hear this is coming. Do you know when? We'd love to stop paying for this on our own, and we'd love to have a system that actually works better with us. And that's how we got to help kind of test it out before they opened it up.
Yeah. So now, so you mentioned they used to have a different one. What have been some of your main, like, oh, I love this about WhoFi kinds of things that you think, especially compared to that paper calendar, maybe, wow, this has been so worth our time in getting it set up?
So the best thing has been it just integrates seamlessly with the programming calendar, which did as well with our previous digital version. But with that online paper one, there was no cohesion really at all unless staff remembered to go in and put their programs into that binder. And so we're still adjusting to the change, but it really has everything we absolutely need. So there's a few tools with our previous system, especially in terms of payments, that WhoFi doesn't quite have yet, but I'm told they're kind of working on some ways to manage that a little bit better. But we've got our own workaround that works actually quite well for us. And then for ease of use, it's so much easier to look at. In our previous digital one, our patrons could go on and look online, but it was kind of this long horizontal bar, and they'd have to keep scrolling and keep scrolling until they got to their time. And the WhoFi version that's patron focused or patron fronted is much easier on the eyes and easier to kind of see what you're booking. And then it's true for our staff as well. I find it easier to use.
Great. Yeah, we're going to do a brief demo here in just a few minutes, but you mentioned integration with other WhoFi tools. So you use is it Community Calendar? That's what it's called. Yep. So when your staff is scheduling a teen event that would need that big meeting room, can they sign in right away and say like, oh, Rotary's got that reserved on Wednesday afternoon, but I could do this on Tuesday instead? They could see all of it integrated.
Yep, they can see the when the room's available just in the bookings side of it. And then if they are making their program or creating that program and reserving the space when it's not, or when it is booked, then, and it's not available, WhoFi will automatically pop up with an alert, basically, that you can't book it then. And so then you can kind of go in and see, okay, is it just a 15-minute overlap because there is transition time built into the bookings, or is it an actual conflict? So.
And then I assume that would be the same on the patron side as well. So as soon as a librarian books the room for anything, then that time would no longer be available to the patrons as well.
And it's all color coded right on their end too. So as soon as you go into that date that you're looking for, anything not available is already shaded in red. So you can't even click on it or try to book it.
And those, it doesn't sound like the community really uses the smaller rooms this way, but those small rooms could also be reserved that way if they wanted to be. I have a really important Zoom call. I don't trust my home internet. I'm going to go into the library at 11 and take that call.
Yep. So we allow those rooms to be booked up to 2 weeks in advance. And we do have some of our adult patrons who exactly the things you were talking about. Either they're maybe a college student taking classes and need to have, a quiet space for a group project or studying or something online. And so, yes, they can book those as well the same way.
And then with the integration to the community calendar right away, then you're getting your usage stats and your programming statistics, and it's all kind of tied right there.
Yep.
This is not on my question list for you, but I love this as a way for sort of advocacy to your city too now, because you could maybe go to them and say, like, look how much our community spaces are being used.
Yeah.
We need a bigger space. We need another space. We need dedicated programming space, whatever it is, I think.
Yeah, those libraries who really probably are more space limited, this would be a great tool for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And what has the community response been to being able to do the sort of self book it yourself kind of functionality?
So it varies. We have a lot of community groups who use the room, and some of them like to just book it themselves, and they just go in and book it every month. And some of them prefer to just call us up and have us book it still for them, which is completely fine. It's really simple for us to do as well. The study rooms, I would say, are booked by the patrons less often directly. But the meeting room is, I'd say it's probably maybe 60-40, where they're booking it themselves 40% of the time, or just calling us.
Now, you mentioned you have a policy where somebody who's not a nonprofit, did I get the right amount of negatives there, would have to pay. So have there been other kind of policy things you've been able to work to make sure that the reservation and all that is set up is meeting your library's policies?
Yes. So you can attach your meeting room policy right to each space. And there's lots of different ways you can do that. You can do it as a link. There is a final box they have to check that says, I agree to the terms and conditions. And so whether they read those terms and conditions or not is a whole different story, but they have access to all of the policies. There's like the key parts of our policy we were able to kind of put in a way that kind of pops up when they scroll over a piece of it. And so things like we have carpet, and so we would prefer no red drinks. We would prefer no tape or tacks in the walls, and just little things like that we were able to kind of put on this little tool that just kind of pops up when they scroll over it. And so a lot of things and it's very easy to customize for your policies. So we have different policies for the study rooms than we do for the meeting rooms. And we were able to integrate the individual policies really easily with each of those.
Oh, that's perfect. So like if I had a 2-hour time limit on a study room, for example, if someone tried to reserve it for 3, it could pop up and say,
I don't know if it does that, but it does attach the policies. And so patrons can see that. And then when we go to approve or not approve the bookings, we can refer back to that policy. The other thing is each booking form. So the forms that you fill out are customizable as well by space. And so when they book a study room, it looks slightly different than the meeting room.
That's perfect. Well, do you want to take us on a little tour here?
Sure.
All right. I think you should have screen share.
Is that working all right?
Yeah, it looks great. I'm seeing the kind of a bar chart of different stats, I think.
So when you first log into WhoFi, this is your dashboard, which people who have been long adopters of the WhoFi Wi-Fi will recognize this. And then there's kind of 2 places right now that integrate the rooms. The community calendar, which is where we program all of our programs. And whenever you schedule a program, so you create the event, and in the event details, you can pick which room. So we've already pre-populated these rooms. And so these are the choices for those events. And then that will automatically reserve that space as well.
Perfect.
Our meeting rooms, then, we have already created our rooms here. And within each room, you can add what amenities are available, how many seats there are. You can attach a picture, and then there are different options. So this one is on auto approve. We've made our study rooms or our story time room auto approved because only staff is reserving that. So as you can see here, it's internal bookings only. And so patrons don't need any of this because they won't see any of that. but this is what each room looks like. You can do this tooltip info, which is what I mentioned with the pop-up. So this is where I kind of put in some important policy things that I wanted to make sure stood out to people. And then you can attach a URL, and I've just added our policies to a Google Drive and attached a link right there. And then I did copy and paste a lot of it, but this doesn't hold everything. So, and then you can create your own booking forms with custom fields. And as you can see, I've got questions on here that are not required because this is for the study room. So if reserving a study room, please enter first and last names of all people using the room is required. Actually, their full name is required as well. I'm not sure why that wasn't checked. And so I'm just going to save that.
Oh, we're in the story time room here.
Oh, that's why it is. Yes. Thank you. So if I go back to my rooms, and go into our study rooms, we have one of our study rooms that we save as internal bookings only. So it's available on a first come, first serve basis.
Oh, that's a nice way to do it.
The other 3 are available ahead of time for people to book. And so it's the same. You tell them how many seats there are, manual approval, auto approve, custom schedules. So our custom schedule for our meeting rooms, we end the bookings 15 minutes before we close. And then, so I've created a setup time for that. Here it kind of shows meeting room instructions: no food, all drinks must have lids.
Yep.
Just common things. And then here's where they have to fill in. I have read the study room policies and guidelines as listed is currently not required because I realized that they automatically have that as an end question about terms and conditions. So I created it, but then they already had it. So they're already preemptively forcing people to do that.
Perfect.
So that's where you see all the room setups. You can also generate reports on how many bookings there have been, how many people, because it does ask how many. We don't really put in accurate numbers because often we don't know how many people. So we just kind of guesstimate on that. But if you're really looking for those stats, you could definitely take important data from this to use to kind of help guide you to get more funding for more space if necessary. And then lastly, under bookings, this is the day view. And so you see all the rooms and what's booked when. And I've currently blocked out these names, but this is a booking from 9 to 3 in the meeting room. And then this is actually our program. So it automatically populated this when she created the program. These gray areas are that transition time that's built in. So you can adjust that on every booking. If you go into here, there's a setup time and a transition time. So if you know how much it's going to take to get the room ready for a group, you can adjust that as needed. This is each booking will have a tool that looks like this, and you fill in as much as you can. One thing we do is we just pull up our ILS and we'll copy as much of the patron info, copy and paste it just to make it a little quicker. And then in booking details, there's different notes. So we try to have staff always put their initials in of who took that booking if it wasn't auto done. And then if there's other notes, if they needed certain things, if it was a booking that needed to be paid for, I would put a note in there that says email patron to pay by X date. And then when they paid, we would update that note as well. So these are all just for the library.
Perfect.
And then here's our program one. And again, it's got the notes for the library as well. So this is what it looks like from the staff perspective. You can also go to the month view, which shows it in elongated form, and you can filter it by room as well. So perfect. If you're just looking to book one of the study rooms, seeing if it's available, you can click right on here at the certain time you wanted to start the booking, or you can just click the blue create a booking button.
Oh, that's pretty similar to any traditional
Yep.
calendaring kind of software. Seems really intuitive.
It is. It's very intuitive. You can go move ahead to pick a date. Honestly, this took almost no training for my staff. Now they had been trained on a different digital system so that it's somewhat similar, but it's super user friendly. If you just play with it for a little bit, you'll figure it out. And then from the patron side, I'm going to go to our website, and we've got this big blue button, book a space.
Oh, wow.
And so this is what it looks like. It takes you right here. And Tuesdays are busy days in our meeting room. So lots of red here.
I could book it for 6 o'clock. I'd like to have my supper there, please.
And then it goes through all the available rooms, and you can hover over to see the amenities. And then this is that information that I added in to each room.
Perfect.
And so we've got different schedules for our meeting room than we do for our study room, even because the study rooms are only open during open hours, so 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. versus 6 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. And really that should probably go a little bit later now that I'm looking at it, because we do allow people to use the room up until 11 p.m.
Oh, wow.
So.
Well, that's nice. You can set the times for each room like that.
Yes, it's really been nice. And that was one of the things that made it really nice to work with WhoFi, is because they're so open to suggestions. And so we talked to them about how different rooms have different needs because they're used for different things. And WhoFi really just asked us a million questions about, okay, well, what do you need it to look like? And they really came through, and we are so happy with it.
So I think you mentioned it does not integrate with your library system at all, right? So you have your patron record in your ILS where you've got their name and contact information. Yep. And all of that. And then you've got the booking system. But I mean, a small library, it's not a huge deal to look that stuff up either. But that'd probably be a nice to have, huh?
It would be, yeah. But I feel like that would be a difficult task for WhoFi to achieve, just because there's so many ILS systems that are used. And so it works out really well for us. We really only need their name and then phone number and email address. And if it's a study room being used, often we just put in the name and then we put in a generic. It won't let you book it without the phone number and email. So we put in our phone number and our email. Because we know they're patrons, we can look them up in the ILS if we need to after the fact. So that just makes it quicker in terms of assigning those bookings and getting them the room right away. For the meeting room, then we just copy and paste from the system, or if they're right there in front of us booking the room or on the phone with us, we just ask them for that information and type it right in.
So one question I always like to ask is, if I'm a library that has, maybe I've been using a paper calendar, maybe I just have meeting rooms in my life for the first time, would you recommend this tool to me? Would you tell me to go for it?
Absolutely. I started my library career in Cambridge, just south of here, which is a tiny B-sized library with no meeting room, no dedicated meeting room. But I would have recommended this even for Cambridge, because they have a little community table that sometimes different groups use for different things. And this would have been a great tool even for them to use, just to keep track of who's going to use it when. And so I definitely think this is a great tool. If any of the smaller libraries are in their like community building that also has spaces, you could add those spaces and kind of help your city out even maybe with some of that scheduling. I just think this is a really easy tool to learn, and it's free for all of us. So we might as well take advantage of what a great tool. And they built it for libraries. They talk to librarians, and I love that, because so many things in society are created without getting the input of the people who will be using it. And so WhoFi did a great job.
Yeah, looks really user-friendly, looks really, really simple to use. Any closing thoughts, anything I forgot to ask you?
Not that I can think of.
All right, well, we'll pop your contact information up on the closing slide.
Great.
We'll get this recording out. I don't think we have any handouts or anything like that for folks to see. I'm sure they can find your meeting room policy on your website if they're interested in doing that. But
Yes. All of our information is right on our website. And if you just Google Nevada Public Library, we're the first one that pops up, as
even ahead
many
of
people in
anything.
Nevada know.
Yeah.
Yep, we get a lot of applicants for Las Vegas and Reno citizens.
I bet you do. The things you don't think of.
Yep.
Well, my thanks to Erin and the team at the Nevada Public Library for helping pilot this for libraries across the country. I really do think it is a great tool for libraries of all sizes. So I do encourage you to reach out to WhoFi and get your information plugged in there if you've got meeting rooms or spaces of any sort that you're trying to manage. So watch more kernels if you're interested, and otherwise reach out with any questions. And my thanks to Erin.
Thank you.